first we were going to go to the beach. And then we thought about going to Philadelphia. And then we thought, why don't we go see this monument in Plymouth, Massachusetts? And so we knew we wanted to go see the monument. And I bring up TripAdvisor to see what to do. And the number one attraction, the one with all the raving reviews, is the tour that Leo Martin gives at this monument. And so we booked this tour, and we were just floored. We were so floored. We had such a good time. We learned so much. It was the most life-changing trip we've ever taken. That the next year we brought back two young men who had gone through drug addiction and through Teen Challenge, and we wanted them to experience what we had experienced and become men of God and touch what it means to be an American citizen. And so we got to, over the years, we got to run into Leo and Nancy and Pastor Paul Jaley, and we've just been following them as God keeps honing in on Plymouth, Massachusetts. And we were supposed to come for their 400-year anniversary, and we had planned it out 7 years in advance. So I've never planned out anything like that before.
We booked our hotel, I think.
A house, like
18,
a year and a half.
18 months in advance.
Yeah.
And then coronavirus happened.
Plymouth is our America's hometown. It's our home away from home. And we just fell in love with Leo and Nancy Martin.
So thank you guys for being here. So what I was kind of hoping to start off with for either of you is tell our viewers about this monument that I'm going to actually go and grab in a second, and help them to catch the fire that we have inside of us. Leo, when you tell the story of the Pilgrims, not only do we have your New England accent that is very, heartwarming, but just the way that you tell this story. So I just really wanted to give you free reign for however you feel the most passionate to tell the parts that you feel like other people who maybe never heard this story before.
They still think the Pilgrims are wearing the black hats with the little buckles and...
Yep.
Well, they're not. Yeah, we have a very unusual place in this country where we're able to do what we do every day. And we do go up to the monument every day, and I do tours of it every day. I also do tours of Plymouth, historic walking tours. I have an economics tour. I have a covenant tour. So we do all these different things to highlight the founding of our country.
Awesome.
And that our country was founded on Christian principles. And we're very bold about that because it's a fact. We're very fortunate in that we have primary documents. So when I talk about the faith of the Pilgrims, and Nancy does, we're telling factual stories. Yes. And we have the books of Plymouth Plantation, Mort's Relation, Good News from New England, all here. So when people get upset with us because we're telling a fake story, I said, don't blame me, blame William Bradford.
Yeah, well,
what he said.
Jump in. Maybe people don't know. Explain to them what a Plymouth Plantation is and Mort's Relation, because we've read them, but many people have never heard of them.
Plymouth Plantation is a book that was written by Governor William Bradford. It was his journal, and it journals from the time they were in England, Holland, and right up through the building of the plantation. Until some of the people even started leaving the plantation and starting other colonies. But it journals almost daily exactly what happened. So when we look at it, we look at the faith part of what they did.
Right.
Because people have to ask themselves, why would these people do what they did? What would cause someone to come over an ocean with 102 people to start a new community in nowhere?
Right.
What would cause that commitment? And the commitment is caused because they made a covenant with God.
Right.
And that covenant with God is called the Mayflower Compact. See, they promised God that they would build a body politic with God in charge.
Wow.
Instead of people. See, back in England, if you lived in England at the time, there was this fellow by the name of King James. And they had a problem with King James because, King James was told he was God's representative on earth.
Yes.
He was the king. So now I'll be honest, if someone kept telling me I'm God's representative on earth, eventually I'm going to think I'm God on earth. And that's what happened to the king. He thought he was God on earth.
Right.
That rubbed the Pilgrims the wrong way. And the pastor, John Robinson, took his folks out of the Anglican Church, King James's Church, and they had church in their homes. In other words, the Pilgrims separated from the Church of England. That's why we're called separatists.
Yeah.
But when we did that, Pastor Robinson never wanted to see one person in charge of everything ever again, like the king, who was head of the church and the state. So he had his congregation elect him pastor, not appoint him.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, appoint him, you can't get rid of him. Elect him, you can dump him. But that started self-rule in our country. The result of that was the Mayflower Compact. So in England, the power went from God to the king to the people. And then in the Mayflower Compact, they changed the power.
Right.
In the Mayflower Compact, it reads the power goes from God to the people to the king.
Yeah.
See, now the leader is responsible to the people who are responsible to God.
Right.
And as long as we keep that covenant, we're going to be okay.
So we actually got this
Pick this up in
at the Jenny Museum. And it hangs in our studio.
Oh, wow.
This is a little replica of the Mayflower Compact. So it's not that long on the tooth, right? Like, I mean, it's not that, it's pretty short, you know, it's not that, it was very concise, but it held so much power. And these people put their life into it. They were like, we're joining together. We're going to do this thing. And this is essentially the foundation of our great nation. Am I right about that?
It's absolutely true. And I had someone into the building today who asked me, what is the significance of the Mayflower Compact in relation to the Constitution and the Declaration? And I simply tell them it's the preamble to any Constitution ever written.
Yes.
And the principles in the Mayflower Compact are found in the principles of the Constitution, where the founding for the forefathers, us, passed that information to the founding fathers when they wrote the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. So what we have that is we expanded that covenant to include the founding of our country.
Okay.
And as long as we stay under the covenant with God, again, we're going to be just fine. But if we move away from the covenant, we're going to have a problem. See, God's a God of order. And the more you stay close to God, the more order you have. The more you move away from God, the more disorder you have. Have you noticed a little disorder lately?
Just a little.
Yeah. Because we're moving away from the covenant.
Right.
And we have to get back to the covenant.
But do you feel like I feel, and not to because we're going to get back, guys, we're going to take you down the path of the Pilgrims, because I want you guys to catch the fire that we literally have. There's nothing I'm more passionate about besides God in this world than our Pilgrim forefathers. But what I'm feeling is the people themselves are actually, we're seeing kind of a refining of the fire, a sifting, and it's drawing, all of this chaos that you're talking about is drawing people closer to God, because they're recognizing, kind of like the appeal to heaven flag, we will not be able to win this fight without God. And is essentially, when it comes to the forefathers monument, they gave us a roadmap for how to get back if we ever lost our way. Am I correct?
Yes, you are. You're 100% correct. And we need to stay with those basic principles that we were founded on Christian principles. See, people don't do what they did just because. They do it because they're committed.
Right.
And that commitment is called a covenant. See, I had a conversation with a guy once who said, what's the big deal about the covenant, Leo? And I said, well, if I made you a promise and I broke it, who cares? Other than you. But if I make a promise under God, as God is my witness,
wow,
they better keep that promise. And that was the Pilgrims. They made that covenant, and they subtly stayed in that covenant because they made a promise to God what they would do. And the first covenant they made actually was in Scrooby, England, when they separated from the church. And they formed their own church, and it's called the Scrooby Covenant, where they would stick together, love each other, love God, no matter what it cost them. But here's the thing with that. You didn't have to belong to that church. It was your choice.
Wow.
You had to belong to King James's church.
Right.
But if you make the choice to belong to that church, follow the rules. But you don't have to belong.
Right.
So when we get this thing where the people think the Pilgrims were legalistic because we had rules, that is not true.
Yeah.
You can't have a society without rules, but you don't have to belong to our society.
Right.
You can leave. And this Mayflower Compact was the same thing. You don't have to belong to Plymouth, but this is how we're going to behave.
Yeah.
If you come in here, behave the same way.
So one of our viewers here, Aaron Lane, says, I never heard anything about that in school. And he says, I was born in 75, so not so young, but I wonder when it was taken out of the curriculum. Do you know when they started shifting away from the truth to this kind of false narrative that we have that makes us feel like the Pilgrims and their relationship with the Wampanoag Indians and everything was just white privilege?
It's been going on for a long time. It's like boiling a frog. You put him in the water, you boil him, and he doesn't know he's getting boiled. This started a long time ago, and you start it usually by omission.
Yeah.
Leave things out. Forever, the Pilgrims weren't an important story, and nobody talked about the Pilgrims. Buckles, turkey, that was the story.
Yeah.
But and they slowly just moved that out. And to be honest with you, it started way back. I mean, Woodrow Wilson. He was not a good president, and he was totally against the historic settings of our country. And he started taking the history out of our country. Now, once you remove the history, you got nowhere to go.
Very interesting that goes back to Woodrow Wilson, who, as a side note, helped create the Federal Reserve and the mess that we're in.
Exactly right. Exactly right. He was a terrible president.
He was terrible.
Yeah, he was a bad guy, quite frankly. And so as you get this and you go from president to president, you can see the change. You can see the presidents who were solid, who stayed by the covenant, and you can see the presidents who moved away from the covenant.
Right.
For the most part, they stayed by the covenant.
I don't want to jump around too much, but I do kind of want to spice in, maybe we can splice in a few Pilgrim stories around the story. You mentioned Woodrow Wilson. We do know that it got me thinking about the fact that he played a Klan movie in the White House, that he was essentially a white supremacist and a racist. But you tell a story that, from what I understand, there were some slave ships that went around the coast when the Pilgrims were there. And what happened there? Didn't they arrest the slave ship owners?
Yes, they did. But that slave ship went into Boston.
Okay.
Not into Plymouth.
Okay.
But it did go in, and the captains were arrested for having slaves.
Wow.
In Boston. And in Plymouth, we didn't have slaves.
Right.
We had indentured servants.
Okay.
And that's a big difference.
Well, sure.
Well, see, an indentured servant is a payment of a debt.
Right.
For example, John Howland was an indentured servant.
Okay.
Governor Carver paid his way, so he owed him 7 years of his life.
Right.
But at the end of 7 years, he was a free man.
Right.
So it has a beginning and an end, a payment of a debt. Being a slave is being owned by somebody else.
Right. Exactly.
So if you could take us back to, give us the quick rundown of, okay, you talked about being in England. Then we go to, tell them a little bit about Holland, and then how we end up deciding as this family to come here to the Americas.
To the empty world. And like I like to tell everybody, there was no McDonald's here. Okay? When these people got on this ship, there was no Home Depot. There were no boards cut. You know, we could go out west, but we got gas stations along the way. We can grab some wood along the way. Heat, yeah, exactly. There was nothing.
It wasn't even the same as going out west in the 1800s.
No, because you could take, there was already stuff here.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, the Pilgrims separate from the Church of England. It did not sit well with the king, so they were forced out of England and went to Holland for 12 years where they could worship freely. Now in Holland, you could worship any way you wanted. All denominations were in Holland. So you have to ask this question, then why did they leave Holland if they could worship freely? It's because Holland was liberal in every other way, too. Not just letting you worship, but the children were learning the liberal ways of the Dutch. And we wanted our children to keep their English identity. So we didn't want that. Some of them were leaving the family, going off on ships, and the family unit was breaking down. Mm-hmm. And we needed the family unit not to break down. So one of the main reasons we came here was for the children. It was also to spread the word of God. William Bradford called themselves, we were like stepping stones.
Yeah.
for the next generation, we set the way. Oh, by the way, guys, now we're stepping stones, so we got to get our act together. We got to get
Yes,
working.
that's good.
Yeah, they were stepping stones, and so they're in Holland, and they decided they need to leave for the sake, really, of their children and spreading the world. And they were getting old; they were breaking down, So they needed a fresh start. Now imagine these are families, and they make 2 huge moves in 12 years.
Yeah.
England to Holland, Holland back to England into here.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible what they did. And again, the reason they did it, it was their commitment. It was their commitment to God that they did that. So they can come here and start a society based on biblical law.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why they made such a big move. And the stories of what they did, keep in mind, this is a human story. When you go to school, they teach you about dates and places.
Right.
Which is incredibly boring. And I believe they do it on purpose because they don't want our kids learning their history.
Right.
They want them walking away from history. But when you tell a human story, the human interactions, the interactions with each other, with the crew members, with the Indians, all these different interactions, and you see an incredible story. Why did we sign a peace treaty with the Indians?
Right.
They didn't in Jamestown.
Right.
But why did we do it here? We did it here because the Pilgrims were a product of the Reformation. And John Robinson, their pastor, was a product of that Reformation. Now, what he's doing, he's reading the Old Testament, and he comes across a passage called the Dominion Charter. Dominion over the earth, over the animals, birds, fish, things that creep and crawl. But he also read this, not each other.
Yes.
He read, we're all made in the image of God. Well, his thinking was, if we're all made in the image of God, then no human being has a right to be above another human being without their consent. Wow. Civil government, self-rule, is a biblical principle. You can't have civil government without biblical law.
Yeah.
And the way I like to explain it is this. You want me to be king? Happy to do it. I'll take the job. And you know what I'm going to do today? I'm going to set the law. You know what I'm going to do next week? Change it in my favor.
Yeah.
But I can't change God's law. Without that truth, without that constant, you cannot have a civil government.
So the Pilgrims, they first, they bought their own ship. What happened to that ship?
Well, they did. They had 2 ships when they originally came over. One called the Speedwell, one called the Mayflower. They owned the Speedwell. They leased the Mayflower.
Right.
The Speedwell picked our friends up in Holland, brought them to England, met the Mayflower, and came over. When they left England, the Speedwell leaked twice. They had to sell it for half what they paid for it, lost their investment. 20 of the original passengers had to stay behind, and they left late. When they landed on the tip of Cape Cod, they had run out of food. The men looked around the Cape, found a stash of corn buried in the ground by the Indians, and they took it. They did not steal the corn, they borrowed it, they paid it back over. Had they not taken the corn, they never would have survived. Because you see, by the end of that first winter, they were doling out a 1/4 pound of cornbread per person per day to survive on.
Wow.
So as you can well imagine, the mothers took their bread and fed their children. They covered their children with their own bodies to keep them warm. Of those 18 married women, 14 died the first winter. Sacrificing for the next generation, knowing if they did not survive, we would not survive.
Yeah.
We have a statue here called the Pilgrim Mother. And on the back of that statue, it says they brought their families in a sturdy virtue and a living faith in God, without which nations perish.
Wow.
And while the women were making that tough decision, the men were making another one. Hold back some of that corn. If they had no seed for the first season, nobody would have survived.
Yeah.
We call that the starving time.
Right.
But again, why would they commit like that? What would cause them to do what they did?
Right.
It was the covenant.
Right.
Commitment to God. At the end of that first season, when Captain Jones got the Mayflower ready to go back to England, he turned to those 51 remaining Pilgrims and he said, I want you back on my ship. I'm taking you home. I can't leave you here.
Right, yeah. Right.
Not one got back on.
Right.
But I will tell you this. When that ship disappeared over the horizon, those 51 Pilgrims fell on their knees and they wept. The last bit of civilization as they knew it just disappeared.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what did William Bradford say when that event took place? He said, like Gideon's army.
Whoa.
The Lord thought us too many for the task at hand and cut our number down. And he got on the boat to come back, to stay.
Wow.
The commitment was that strong. Now we had 20 people who didn't, who left.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And even though they were under the covenant originally, their commitment wasn't as strong as the rest of these people.
Okay.
They didn't fulfill the covenant.
Right.
But how strong this covenant was.
So God had a very interesting meetup here. There, where Plymouth now is, there wasn't there a some sort of sickness or virus and kind of wiped out an Indian tribe, so that when they came in, that land wasn't being used. Am I correct?
Yes, ma'am. What happened is when the Pilgrims came to Plymouth, where we're located, where our museum is located, is on the original site of Plymouth Plantation.
It's absolutely
It's
beautiful. You
Really
guys
took
all
place
have to
right
go.
where we're located. When people come to Plymouth, they believe that the Pilgrims stole the land from the Indians.
Right.
They did not.
They did not.
The Indians did not want the land because of the plague.
Yeah.
They wouldn't go back on the land. So the Pilgrims took land nobody wanted. Everything after that they paid for to the chief Massasoit. Guys, this is very important. If we can't own property, we have absolutely no power.
Yeah.
Whoever owns the property we do business on will be our master. We will be their slave. We have to have the ability to own property. And the number one property the Pilgrims believed they owned and nobody had a right to touch was their conscience, what they believed.
Yeah.
What you believe is your property. Nobody has the right to take it from you. And that's why the Pilgrims came to Plymouth.
So I have a few. There's some good. This is a lively chat here. We have one of our viewers who is a descendant of the Pilgrims from how do you say her name?
Peregrine White.
Peregrine White. She's
Peregrine
a descendant.
White?
Yes, the
Robin
first baby born in America. We actually have a British viewer here who is a bit of his own hobby historian. And he says, do your guests realize that the Mayflower actually originates and left from a port in Harwich, Essex, then first and then put into Plymouth after repairs?
Right. The speedwell leaked twice.
Okay.
They had to turn back to repair it. The last time they turned back and started coming over here for the final time, when they abandoned the speedwell and everybody joined the Mayflower, they left from Plymouth, England.
Okay. One of our viewers, he travels all over England and shows us spots. He says even the captain and his crew resided in Harwich, Essex, and the Mayflower was actually built in the port of Harwich, Essex. And then somebody says, couldn't they eat the shellfish on the coast of New England?
Yes, they could. And when they got off the Mayflower in Provincetown, not in Plymouth, but on the tip of Cape Cod, that their shallop, the boat they were going to explore with, was all broken up from the rough crossing. So some of the men did walk around the Cape and they found clams and they ate the clams and got very sick.
Oh.
Yeah. So that was all of a sudden became no option. And keep in mind, what they did is they found a stash of corn buried in the ground by the Indians and they took it. They didn't steal it. They borrowed it. They paid it back later. But had they missed that by one day, the next day they got 6 inches of snow.
Wow.
I forgot about that.
I remember
they never would have found the corn.
Everything was providential with this. God's hand was so on everything that they did, even in the midst of the suffering that they went through.
So in that port, at Plymouth Rock, isn't that some sort of safe harbor that they found?
Yeah, the tip of Cape Cod. They were in here, so it was a protected harbor. But they weren't supposed to land here. We were supposed to land in Northern Virginia, which at the time was the Hudson River. Tried to go around the tip of Cape Cod. It's the roughest piece of ocean on the East Coast. In the winter, they couldn't get around, so they came back here and rode the Mayflower Compact and stayed in that harbor and then settled in Plymouth because of our river.
But could you imagine them going to Jamestown? I mean, everything would have been different. This was literally God's hand. Yeah. Don't go there. I'm going to keep you protected. And so we see God in the wind and the waves once again protecting
and then the meetup with the Wampanoag. There's very special. Can you explain? I know everybody gets. I don't think most people actually heard of the Wampanoag. and everybody gets mixed up. Squanto and Samoset and Massasoit. Everybody gets mixed up. Could you explain the characters here and how the Native Americans actually first integrated and actually became friends with the Pilgrims?
Yeah, sure. But just to touch on a point you made, the Pilgrims didn't give thanks for everything. They gave thanks in everything.
Oh, that's good.
Everything they did, they found a reason to give thanks.
Oh, that's so good.
Because they believed biblically that everything God does, he does for our best.
Okay.
So they gave thanks.
That's so good.
Everything. But the relationship with the original relationship with the Indians is the plantation was being built in the spring, and Governor Carver was standing there, and this Indian walked right up the middle of the plantation, walked right up to the governor, looked him straight in the eye, and said, "Hi, how you doing? You got a beer?" Yeah. His name was Samoset, and he learned to speak broken English because he rode on fishing boats. He loved to ride in the water, so he rode on fishing boats. But not only did they teach him broken English, they taught him how to drink beer. So he came up and asked for a beer, and they didn't have any. and Brad said, "I got a little brandy, he said, well, that'll do." I had a couple of brandies, and he stayed in Stephen Hopkins' house overnight. So the Pilgrims, the men, stood around the house holding guns, waiting for him to get up and attack them, which he never did.
He never did.
He got up the next day, said, "I'll be back. I'm gonna go get some friends. I'll be back." He came back about 6 days later with Massasoit and Squanto.
Okay.
Now Squanto could really speak English.
Right.
And so that's how they first met Massasoit, which was a good thing because Samoset knew Massasoit, and they knew that this relationship might work. And so that's when they met Squanto, and Squanto stayed with the Pilgrims, taught them how to fish.
Was Squanto the one whose the rest of his tribe was killed off by a disease?
And didn't he go to England?
Yeah, he was a Pawtuxet Indian. And his whole tribe, the Pawtuxet Indians, lived where we are. The whole tribe was wiped out. He's the only one that survived because he was taken as a slave.
Right.
By hunters who came here before the Pilgrims. So this happened 3 years before the Pilgrims came here. What the hunters would do is invite Indians on their ships to trade with them and then capture them as slaves.
Wow.
Well, Squanto got invited aboard a ship by a hunter by the name of Hunt.
You're kidding.
Oh, no, you can't make this stuff up, can you? Hunt takes him back to Europe. He escapes to a monastery, learns English. 6 months before the Pilgrims come, he comes back in another ship to discover the Pawtuxet Indians wiped out by a plague.
That's devastating.
Wow.
So we went in the morning with Massasoit and the Wampanoag. 6 months later, the Pilgrims arrived. He became the interpreter between the Pilgrims and the Indians.
Wow.
He was literally and again, for anybody that's going through a hardship, you haven't been taken as a slave, okay? But sometimes God does do things that on its face, it seems like it's really bad, but it's because he's preserving you and setting you aside for something else that you can't even see. Because the timing of this is impeccable.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. I mean, stranger things have happened.
Right.
I'll be honest, we don't know why we do what we do. How did we end up here?
Yeah.
We had no thoughts of doing this kind of thing when we started doing what we're doing. But then all of a sudden, these weird things started happening. Things came out of my mouth, and I go, where did that come from? What is going on here? And then, and there's many times we came right up to the day we were going to have to close because we had no funds, we had nowhere to go, and boom, something would happen, and we'd be saved.
Right.
So we've gotten to the point now we don't even worry about it.
Wow.
Because God steps in.
Well, that's a good jump off too. Maybe you could tell people a little bit, how did you get started? Like, you weren't born in pilgrim garb. Look
at Nancy.
It makes it. You
might
guys
feel that way sometimes.
So well, but you grew into this.
Well,
role.
Nancy, take this question. Question.
She'd be good at this. Yeah.
Well, it's a long story, so I'll try to cut it down as best as I can. Leo and I lived not in Plymouth. We raised our family in a town called Scituate. And when our kids grew older and were ready to leave home, we were photographers, and Leo was a remodeling contractor. And we came to Plymouth because Plymouth was sort of like Scituate. It was an ocean town and it was a little bigger near the highway. So we chose to live here. And when we got here, I said to Leo, geez, could we not have a studio in our home? Could we rent a piece of property to have our studio? And he's like, sure. So he goes off to do his remodeling, and I went and looked at the gristmill.
Okay, wow.
And we actually, I don't know if I even told you guys this story, but the gristmill's attached to, the gristmill was built in 1636. It's a reproduction of the mill that John Jenny built in 1636. So it was attached to a restaurant, and all the locals would go there for dinner. So we were now locals, and we were walking there for dinner, and I was thinking about where we were going to rent a studio. And I looked at the mill, and it's just spectacular, beautiful water wheel turning.
Yeah.
And I looked up at the building, and the telephone number, it said for sale.
Get out.
And it said 508-747-7777. So, being the discerning Christian woman that I am, I looked at Leo and I said, I got a call. I knew we couldn't buy it because we had just bought a home here. So I called the next day and told the owner that we wanted to come down and look at it for a photo studio. And so I went down the next day. Leo went off to do his work, and I went down with our 2 daughters and looked at it. It was just gorgeous. It was definitely in disrepair. It had been empty for 3 years.
Wow.
So nobody wants to be a miller, right? Renting a grist mill. So I looked at the building anyways, went down, told Leo, you got to come and look at this. This building is absolutely beautiful. So he goes down the next day, looks at it, and he says to the guy, what is this place? And he told him about John Jenny and that it was a mill. And he looks at me, and this was 2001. Okay. He says, I want to rent it. I want to run it. And I'm like, what? So, long story short, I told you it was a long story. I have to get myself to get to the short story. We got a costume and we had a costume made, and Leo would get up in the morning. We learned how to grind corn and be a miller.
This is the best story ever.
It's crazy story. There's a lot of little things that God's talk about the providence of God, his hand in it. But the landlord taught Leo how to, he had a millwright come down, showed him how to grind corn. And he started giving tours of the mill. And we did that for 10 years.
Wow. So you just, at that point, you were renting it out. Did you put your contractor job aside and become full-time tour guides of just the mill?
Yes, it took a few years for him to do that because we opened up during right before 9/11.
Wow.
So before that time, we looked around and thought we were only telling the secular story. Keep in mind, we didn't know the Christian history like a lot of many other people today. Okay. We never heard of the National Monument to the Forefathers. We were just giving tours, and he gave.
Hang on, but it's right down the street.
Yeah, it's hidden in a neighborhood. And one guy, a guy who was doing ghost tours at the time, he came by and he knew we were new to tourism. And he said, have you ever heard of the National Monument to the Forefathers? And Leo and I are like, no, what is that?
You guys, it's literally a 5 or 10 minute walk.
Wait a minute. And like this is my finger as a person. So like you can't, it's hard to miss. It's big.
It really is amazing. It's 81 feet tall. Yeah. And it literally is standing on a hill in a neighborhood. Right. So it's all hidden by trees.
It is. You're right.
And we ended up, now that he told us about that, we had to go and see it. But after we saw it and knew it was there, you can see her hand above the trees. You can see her hand when you're out in the ocean on a boat. You can see her hand, up like that. So, so we saw that, and we were Christians at the time. So Leo made a few phone calls, and there was a girl actually who made his costume, and he said to her kids went to a Christian school. And Leo said, well, do you know where I can find the history of the Christian history of our country. And she gave him a couple of books. What is the name of that? The Principal Approach books. And she gave him the name of a local historian pastor, who we now know as Paul Jaley.
Who we love.
Yeah, and Leo called him up and said, someone told me that you might have some information you could tell me about the Christian history of our country. And he's like, oh, well, let me look around, see what I can find. And in reality, we thought he must have been like doing cartwheels down the hallway because he's a pastor. Nobody wants to know the answers to those questions. Yeah. So the next day or two later, on Leo's desk were piles of books on the history of our country, the Christian history of our country. And at that moment, I do believe that that's when God's call came on Leo, and he started to learn what the story was all about. And now, all of a sudden, he's giving the Christian perspective. And
at the grist mill, though, right?
Yes. Go ahead, Ola.
Yeah, we did at the grist mill. And what tied into the grist mill Christian history is John Jenney, who built the mill, is the first person in the country to be paid for service. So capitalism in our country began at the Jenney grist mill because he was paid to run the mill. So we have this whole rich economic history. We do an economics tour now, which the kids are really thrilled about. They fall right to sleep. But the point is, it's just when you take what they did and everything they did was under the Bible, and you can see the biblical structure of everything they did, including and especially their economics.
Wow.
That's where we started doing an economics tour from a Christian perspective. Then we got the house we're in, and we expanded and went off in so many other directions. And of course, we work with Kirk Cameron on Monumental.
Yes.
Which you were supposed to be in.
Yeah.
And I still don't know why you weren't, because I've taken your tour and I don't think that you have a face for radio. But
it all depends on your perspective.
Well, I don't know. I think I have a good perspective. But you guys you joined up with Kirk and did a Thanksgiving special 2 years ago, right?
We did a TV program.
Right. It was really good.
One-on-one with Kirk Cameron. That one, I think we're talking about.
Yeah, I actually did a tour of the monument for Kirk,
yeah,
which is kind of weird, given the guy that made Monumental a tour. But it went really well that same year, actually the same weekend. I did a Thanksgiving special for David Barton.
Is that what it was? Okay.
Yeah. So
that was filmed in front of the grist mill.
In front of the grist mill. And, but everything happens at the same time. Everything happens for us around Thanksgiving.
Well, that's
I wonder why.
Which is why when Leah asked, it was last minute, and Leah goes, I really want to get Leo and Nancy on. I said, me too, but it's like, they're busy season. I mean, you're looking at like April, 1st through the 7th for a tax, accountant.
Yeah.
Like this is your busy time. So
we've got a comment here. It says, "This is so awesome. I'm currently trying to raise money to buy a house near me so I can open up a community homeschool and a home church. This is like a whisper that I'm doing the right thing."
Amen. That is
good.
Really good. Yeah. So a couple more stories, and then I want to open it up to the chat for you guys to be able to raise your hand and verbally interact with Leo and Nancy.
Well,
but before
we have to do the monument.
We have to. That's what I was thinking. I was wondering if maybe you could take us through the monument like you do on your tour. Maybe you don't have to do the whole thing if you don't want to, but just maybe some of the highlights that you like. And
what is this? What is? Why?
Okay, no, faith last.
The first question is, who came up with the idea for this monument?
Right.
And how is it connected to the Pilgrims?
Well, a while ago, the Mayflower Society wanted to build a monument to honor the forefathers.
Okay.
So they put together a little contest. These were the rules. You would enter the contest. If you won, you would get a $400 prize in the contract.
Wow.
A gentleman from New York City entered, and he won. Well, the day before he was going to get the contract, Hammett Billings, an architect from Boston, called the Mayflower Society and said to them, "What's the matter with you people? You can't give this contract to someone from New York City. You got to give it to someone from Boston, me." They said, "Well, what are you going to do about it? The contest is over." He says, "I'll tell you what I'll do about it. I'll design 2 monuments.
Wow.
I'll design this one in the portico over Plymouth Rock."
Right.
And I'll raise the money for both.
Wow.
He said, I'll raise the money for both contests over. Guy from New York got the $400. Hammett Billings got the contract. And so that's where it generated from. It was generated by the Mayflower Society.
So show me your book.
I have, well, this is my book. Literally, everything that's memorial. We got this out of the Jenny Museum, actually. This is, to me, one of my most prized possessions. This is can you tell them about this real quick, Leo, about where this came from?
Well, that was written up simply when the monument was put together, and it tells you what happened. It took longer to build this monument than any monument in our country's history.
Right.
Yeah, the first donation for the monument, that's Hammett Billings' portico over Plymouth Rock, which is absolutely gorgeous. Unfortunately, they tore it down in 1920 and threw it into Plymouth Harbor and put another one up. But it was too bad. We actually have a piece of it in front of our building at the Jenny. But they needed this. They needed to honor the forefathers, and we put together that contest and built the monument. And the first donation was taken during George Washington's administration.
Wow!
It was completed in 1889. It took longer to build that monument than any monument in our country's history.
Wow.
Because they had a little fundraising problem. We call it the Civil War.
Right.
Money virtually stopped. Well, there was one gentleman from Washington, D.C. who did take out the time to send a $10 check in support of the monument. That gentleman's name is Abraham Lincoln.
I get goosebumps. I do. Okay, so I want to show you guys. Leo, how big was the original design supposed to be? You see those tiny little people there? It was supposed to be huge.
Well, the original design by Hammett Billings was for the monument to be 150 feet high, twice the size.
Yeah.
And that would have had a door in the middle where you could walk into a rotunda up to the feet of faith and look out onto the ocean. But we did have that little fundraising problem, had to cut her in half. Nonetheless, at 81 feet high, we feel she is somewhat adequate.
Very imposing figure.
Yes. So it's a great history to our monument, even the way it was built, even the way it was put together. And Hammett Billings designed the whole thing. Unfortunately, he died before it was completed. It took so long to do it.
Right.
His brother took over. He died, and then somebody else put the rest of the monument together. So even though he said he'd raise all the money, he died. So a different group of people raised the money for each statue.
Oh, okay.
For example, the Statue of Law, the money was raised by lawyers in Connecticut.
That's awesome.
They paid for law. Morality, are you ready for this? The Massachusetts legislature paid for morality.
Oh, wow.
How things change.
What happened to separation of church and state?
Well, that came along.
Right.
They felt that they had to set a fine moral standard, and of course that has certainly gone away.
Right.
So we have law and morality. Faith was produced by the Mayflower Society. And then we have liberty, which was paid for by the United States Congress.
Oh, wow.
The whole Congress?
Yeah, they raised the money for liberty. And of course we have education. And the Statue of Education was paid for by all the school children in Massachusetts, pooled their change and paid for the Statue of Education.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. Yeah. So we did finally get it all pieced together, and we got a beautiful monument. And I'll be honest with you, it is just breathtaking.
It is.
I am so fortunate to be able to go up there every single day and talk about the monument with people from all over the world.
You live and breathe this. And
But this monument, people don't realize and I still don't get, there's so much in this monument. It tells a secret story. And each of these each one of these characters tells a story, and it's deep, and it's like national treasure. You know, when you're trying to, it's like a secret code.
So if they want that secret code, they come to Plymouth to take that tour. Is that tour?
That's what I was thinking.
45 minutes to give that whole wonderful story that Leo does.
And you guys, listen. The reason I got really excited when one of our friends showed up in the chat, the math is 6, because he and his wife and kids were actually going to come to the 400th when we had it scheduled, and then obviously when it got canceled. But you can go by yourself.
Yes.
You don't have to wait for a big event. You literally can take your family to Plymouth and get the tour. You guys have a couple different tours that you do. Am I right about that?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. The monument, of course, is the monument and our walking tour are probably our most popular tour, because the walking tour is the whole Pilgrim story, where they landed, where they lived. Leo takes them to Plymouth Rock, all the statues on the waterfront, talks about each person's, the Pilgrim mothers, the maidens, great stories. The Plymouth Rock, about the Plymouth Rock being the real rock that the Pilgrims stepped on. So that's like an hour and a half walk through town, and
we've done that one. It's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the number one attraction on TripAdvisor.
If he doesn't say so himself.
Number one attraction on TripAdvisor. Yes, it is, and the reviews are off the charts, because somehow, some way, and I don't know how you do it. It's got to be an anointing. It's a calling. When you're taking a tour with Leo. And sometimes you have Pastor Paul Jaley in for specials. When you're taking these tours, you feel like you've been transported back in time. And you can see it, and you can feel it, and you can taste it, and the salt air is on your face, and you see the brook that
the town brook.
Is it herring? What kind of fish is it?
Herring. Yeah.
Okay. They don't they swim up and then they swim back out to the ocean?
That's a really poor explanation.
I know.
That's another story of the providence of God, and how they happened to land there where there was part of the gristmill tour that he used to do, and still on his walking tour, is how the mill was built on the water. So they got the fresh water, they got the water to build the mill, and it also provided them with the herring. So
and the herring was used as fertilizer.
Yeah,
right.
The Pilgrims didn't really like to eat the herring; they're very bony and very hard to eat.
Okay.
They use them as fertilizer, and they show up the 1st of April, and run till the 2nd week of May, right in time for planting, and that's still active.
But they swim in and they go back out.
Yeah,
well, yeah, but
crazy.
Not only did they swim in for 6 weeks, there were 250,000 fish.
Oh my gosh!
For 6 weeks, you can't see the bottom of the river. Solid fish.
Do they still do that? They still do this, right?
Yes, mid-April to mid-May they come, and they go upstream. You cannot see the bottom of the river, like Leo said. It's a brook that goes from our area downstream to the oceans, fresh water, and the herring come up every spring, and they're fighting the flow of the water is down, so they've got the whole flow up. Then they get to the mill, and they have to go up a fish ladder, which is really amazing to see. Yes, to climb up, to get under the street, to go into a calmer pond to spawn.
Wow.
But the amazing thing to me is that's in April and May, and then in September, October, when the fish have their babies, they go back down into the ocean, and they swim around in the ocean for 3 years, and then they come back to the same stream, to the same pond that they were born in.
That's crazy.
I love this so much.
It is. I mean,
after 3 years.
3 years later, out in the ocean, and they come back to, there are other fish ladders in the area, but they come back to the one they were born in, and people say, well, how do you know that? And they put little tags on them to see, where they go and when they come back. And it's just, the whole thing is just so God. It's unbelievable.
That is.
As I said, we have a God is a God of order. That's order.
I love that.
Every year, and then they disappear. And then they come back the same time the next year. It's absolutely amazing.
I love that. All right, so here's what I want you guys to do. If you're listening and you're watching, on your Clout Hub, whether you're watching on your cell phone or on your iPad or wherever you're watching, you should see a little button that says raise your hand. And like I just said in the chat, I'm counting on you guys to participate here, because I know you have questions, but I've been on the other side of one. There was the Renewing the Covenant event with Kirk Cameron and Marshall Foster. earlier this year.
Velveeta King.
It was the very first big Clout Hub event that they did. And I was in one of the breakout sessions with people that I knew. And I do this for a non-living, but it might as well be a living because I put enough hours into it. And my heart started to beat fast before I raised my hand. So I understand being on the other end and the nervousness of not wanting to click that button. But you guys know us. You've been watching us. You may not know Leo and Nancy, but they feel like family to us, so they're just an extension. So I want you guys, you're going to raise your hand, and then the first person that raises their hand, I'm going to add you as a presenter, and we're not going to see your face. It's not going to be a picture. It's just like talking on the phone.
So if you have any questions.
Because I know that you guys have to have questions, because like Aaron Lane in the chat was saying, we have been taught a false history, and you're sitting before two historians here who can set the record straight so that you can then take this and give it to your community. When you're having discussions over Thanksgiving dinner and people want to yeah, well, like you said earlier, Leo, that the Indians or the Pilgrims stole the land from the Indians. Well, actually, no, they didn't. And in fact, they didn't have to pay that corn back. But they did. And in fact, Leo, while we're waiting for somebody to raise their hand, maybe you could tell the story about the Pilgrims and the money that they owed. Was it for the ship? I think. And they made sure that they were going to pay that back to people that they had borrowed money from back in, was it England?
Yeah. Yeah. They were called the adventurers. See, what happens when you're in a foreign country for 12 years, you don't make any money because you're a foreigner. Mm-hmm. And then they want to make this big move again here, but they have no money.
Right.
So they got someone back in England to finance the trip called Thomas Weston. And Weston made them a deal. And this was the deal. You'd go to the New World and you would work 7 years, 6 days a week. Of those 6 days, 4 goes to me. You keep 2 as a personal profit. And at the end of 7 years, you own the land you personally developed. Wow. That's not a bad deal. They took it. They're getting on the boat. Weston shows up on the dock and says, I'm changing the deal. You're going to work 6 of 6 days for me for 7 years. And at the end of 7 years, I own half your property.
Wow.
Which, by the way, he didn't have to say, because if I worked for somebody else all the time, they own everything anyway. So they were virtually indentured servants.
Wow. Right.
But they came anyway. Why? They were back in England and they would have been put in prison. So they came over anyway. And that's when 3 years into the adventure, William Bradford, half the population is starved to death, everybody else is still starving, changed their economic situation. Their economic situation was communal.
Right.
Everybody at the plantation worked in the same field and grew their food. Then at the end of the season, they evenly split with each other what they produced.
Communism.
Yeah, fair enough. As you know, it didn't work. So what Bradford did is he changed to land ownership.
Right.
Now every family owned their own land, grew their own food, fed themselves, and then traded with each other what they had left over. We call that free trade. That worked. They never had a starving day after that. They tripled their production. But did they pay back their debt? They did, and they didn't have to. Wow. It was a business deal. If you and I went into business, you had a good idea and I financed it and it worked, we'd both make money. If it failed, we'd both lose money. End of conversation. Mm-hmm. It failed, and they paid it back anyway.
Wow.
Because they said they would. And a bunch of men in the plantation, they paid the debt off for everybody else, so everybody else could have free trade.
Wow.
They were called the undertakers because they undertook the debt of Plymouth.
Wow.
And it took them years to pay it back, but they did it anyway because they promised that they would. But it got to the point where the 7 years ended, and the Pilgrims went back to the people financing the trip and said, look, we got to change the deal.
Yeah.
We're going to build a trading post where the Cape Cod Canal is today, the Obtuxat trading post. We're going to own it, everything in it, and the 2 boats that go with it. And if you say no, we can't pay you back because we can't make a profit. They said yes. So the Pilgrims started the first privately held company in the country called the Obtuxat Trading Post, the beginning of capitalism.
Wow, that's awesome. All right, so we got Robin.
We've got Robin in the queue here. Robin is one of our faithful viewers. So Robin, I'm going to add you as a presenter, and I'm pretty sure we should be able to hear you. And then up next, we will have Aaron. Robin, is your mic on? We'll wait for Robin's mic to get on here. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult, but yeah, let's see. Make speaker. Let me try that. Robin, can we hear you now?
We got her to work last time.
We did. We got Robin to work last time.
Huh.
She almost. Do you want to try her? Was it the speaker work?
I think I think that's right.
Can you make her a presenter?
I did that one just for a second. Let me try presenter again. Try now, Robin.
I hear you.
Can you hear her?
I can hear you.
Okay,
Yeah,
great. We got
we
you.
got
We
it.
got you. All right, Robin. What have you got to add here?
Okay. I did my genealogy all the way back,
Yeah.
and well, me and my sister, we kind of share this, but so what I think doing your genealogy is a great way to learn American history, because you learn that like there wasn't really a lot of different people here until after like the 1870s, when they had the big immigrant, well, other than the Irish, but you know, because of the potato famine and all that. But so I was able to trace my patriarchal lineage back to Jamestown, and my matriarchal side back to Plymouth.
That's amazing.
Wow.
So, and I mentioned that my sister got very excited about Peregrine White because she was visiting in the Boston area, and she went to the Pilgrims Museum, and there was his cradle in the Pilgrims Museum, the cradle of Peregrine White. Yeah. So, and I do have another prominent ancestor from the Plymouth colony. It was Reverend Brewster.
Oh, really?
Good for you.
Yeah.
Lily, I was like, good for you. I always tell people I don't have anybody in my lineage that is traced back to the Mayflower, so I figure I'm just going to have to marry someone that can do that. Because how many people in our country can trace their lineage back, Leo? It's like millions.
Well,
People can.
the number right now of Mayflower descendants is at 30 million.
Oh my gosh, including some pretty prominent people.
And so,
Yeah, 30 million from 51, including the Bushes,
yeah.
Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Sir Winston Churchill,
Wow.
and of course, the most important one, Marilyn Monroe.
He was a descendant of Reverend Brewster. So because I did seen the descendants of Reverend Brewster. He's one of the.
That's very good. He was a great guy. And if you have hit the book of Plymouth Plantation, written by William Bradford, Bradford does a eulogy to Brewster. You really need to read it. It is unbelievable how high esteem he held that man.
He was a really great man.
Yeah, what I've read, he was very kind, very humble, and very spiritual.
Well, incredibly spiritual. Now, I told you the Pilgrims separated from the Church of England and had church in their homes. The home they had their church in was William Brewster's.
Oh.
Keep in mind, William Brewster was the postmaster. He lived in a house where the king's men coming from Scotland would stop there to refresh their horses and get fed and go on. So William Brewster's having an illegal church in a house owned by the king. Gotta give the guy credit. I mean, really. Yeah, and he also raised William Bradford.
And he brought in William Bradford under his wing.
So now we know where you get it from, Robin. Robin has decided she's taken on, she ran for school board. She didn't make it, but she did run for school board this past election season, and she's got a lot of irons in the fire taking on the big government.
Good girl.
Going.
Keep it
That's
up.
right.
Keep it up.
Yeah.
We need Christians in politics. We need that.
Well, I told people if I didn't win, because I ran on a very conservative constitutionalist platform, I said if I don't win, because I actually want to get rid of all the communism and the sex education and all that stuff, right?
Good for you.
I said if I don't win, get your kids out of school.
Now you're in a very very liberal state, right? Washington?
Yeah, no, Washington's not all liberal, but the Seattle area where I live is horrible.
Okay.
Totally communist.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
All right, Robin, do you have anything else to add?
I just wanted to say that one of the things that people don't realize is that the view of the Pilgrims or the New England colony was not they weren't racist. They didn't see the Indians as different from them. So a lot of tribes kind of waned because they intermarried so much with the colonists who came into the area. I have one ancestor, John Gaskell, who was up in the Salem colony, and he was publicly whipped because he was married to a Native American woman.
Wow.
Of what is it?
The Wampanoag?
Not the Wampanoag. It's the Wanapum band of the Massachusetts tribe of the Algonquin Nation. They actually have a kind of an ancestry there too.
Wow.
So
keep in mind the Puritans were much more legalistic than the Pilgrims. We
yeah.
never would have done that. Our Pilgrims were welcome to marry an Indian if that was what happened. The first generation did not. Later generations did.
Oh,
But it
wow.
was certainly not outlawed. And we were all created in the image of God.
Yeah.
So the thinking was we're all equal in the sight of
Right. And
the big story about a European marrying an Indian is John Rolfe marrying Pocahontas down in Jamestown. And John Rolfe took Pocahontas back to England to show her off. And he brought her to the king. And the king scolded John Rolfe for marrying her because he married up.
Wow.
She was a princess.
Get out.
Right.
You never should have married her. She's a princess. You're out of your league.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
but anyway, so this was a funny story about him. Apparently, he'd gone a little too native, and so he was publicly whipped for refusing to attend services and refusing to conform the hairs of his head to a more gentlemanlike fashion.
Oh my gosh. Wow. That's fascinating. That's really good. All right, Robin, we're going to move on. We've got Aaron, but thank you for being the first to raise your hand.
Yes.
I knew I could count on you, Robin. All right. Let's see. All right, Aaron, and then we've got Lou. We'll do Aaron and then we'll have Lou. Let's see, make presenter. All right, Aaron, are you there? You might have to turn your mic on. Sometimes it takes a minute for that mic to kick on. We're all learning the Cloud Hub platform together.
Oh yeah.
But we're gonna make it work. Keep trying. You'll probably have to turn your it'll give you some sort of option to turn your mic on. You might have to go into your settings and give it permission or something.
Can I hear you, Aaron? Just offline.
It says you're offline. You might have to turn yourself online. I don't know how that... I've not been on the other end except for the first time that I did it, and that's been several months, so I can't remember what it looks like.
Well, let's try to come
All
back.
right, I'm going to put you back in this presenter queue, and then we'll do Lou.
Lou.
Because Lou was able to get it figured out last time. Make presenter.
Lou, are you there?
Oops.
Lou? It says offline, too.
It does say offline.
Try making it speaker.
Oops.
We got somebody there? Somebody speak to us now.
Like I said, it just takes a little bit of practice to
Takes
get it. All right.
Lou or Aaron, can you hear us? Can you speak?
It's like that commercial, that old commercial. Can you hear me now for Verizon?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
All right. It says you're both offline, so somehow you'll have to figure out how to make it.
Well, we can ask a couple more questions, and if you guys pop in, if you guys get your mics working,
and yeah, exactly.
because we're going on 1 hour here.
I know. We'll go for about 15 more minutes. How's that?
Okay. All right, so can you tell everybody what you do for Thanksgiving? Because this is so cool. You guys get people all dressed up. Are you guys?
No, they did that on Saturday, right?
Right, for the Thanksgiving
The
parade.
big parade.
So tell people about the big Thanksgiving parade that you guys put on.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, the parade's amazing. I think it's probably going to be number one in the country. Macy's, I think, is number one, but we had Channel 5 in Boston filmed it live this year.
Oh,
last
awesome.
Last year they did a test, but this year they filmed the whole parade. So we had 21 floats,
Awesome.
2,000 marchers. It's a historically accurate parade, and depending on what the year is, they honor different things, celebrate different things in our history. Leo and I this year, well, every year we have an opening ceremony where we dress like pilgrims. We light the candle, and then Paul Jaley. I see somebody's coming on over here. somebody reads, Paul Jaley reads the One Small Candle verse, and then we this year marched in the parade. We sponsored the Historic Village, which is a reenactment village in Brewster Gardens. So we marched in the parade. So we haven't even seen it yet. They're filming it, showing the whole reproduction on Thanksgiving morning. So we're looking forward to actually watching the parade. From everybody that watched it said it was just spectacular.
I'm going to watch it on Thanksgiving. I didn't get a chance to watch it Saturday. So for sure, if they're going to play it on Thanksgiving, then I'm going to be watching it on Thanksgiving.
Yes, it will be. And then on Thanksgiving morning, I think that's what you were talking about, was we have what we call the Pilgrim Progress, where we get up to as many as 52 people in costume trying to reenact the Pilgrims going to church the first Thanksgiving, correct?
Yeah, we have 51 people, the 51 remaining pilgrims, march through town up to Burial Hill, and they put the service on at the exact spot the Pilgrims did in the 1600s. And it's done the exact same way. Well, not always. Their sermon was 4 hours long, ours is usually 10 minutes. But other than that, it's pretty much the same way. We sing hymns, and it's an amazing thing to see.
And we also do that progress the first 4 Fridays in August as well. So if anybody's coming to Plymouth, they know ahead of time, and they want to, families want to get dressed up and take a walk with us, we just have them contact us, and we'll connect them with the Pilgrim Progress, and they can get their costumes. We provide the costumes, and they can walk through the town as pilgrims. On Thanksgiving, it's really popular. It's really almost hard to get in to be a pilgrim. In the summer, it's a little hotter, so not as many people want to take that walk. But so that's what we do 5 times a year.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. All right. So, Aaron, it says you said that your mic and your cam is ready. Do you want to be on? You can be on camera if you want, or we can just do speaker. It's totally up to you. So you should be able to go in.
Can you say something, Aaron?
Wonder if Robin can give tips for how she did it.
What is this?
Liz Anilla says, can we watch it live? So the parade will air. Where would we watch that, by the way? Did you say that and I wasn't listening?
I think it's WBZ TV. It's Channel 5 Boston. You can look it up, Channel 5 Boston.
Aaron is here in the house.
Hey.
You can probably also get that on their website. usathanksgiving.org would tell you how to find the lives, the replay. So
that's awesome.
Okay, so we've got Aaron with a video and a mic. So let's go before we lose you.
Yeah, we can hear you. We got you loud and clear.
We can see you and hear you. You got a
All
great
right.
up there.
Hey, well, thanks for having me on. Okay, so I'm trying to get some homeschooling, like the county by county. Would you two be willing to do like a video, how would I say it, like a video class almost? Because my children need to know, and it's not available, like, because they're homeschooled, but we're limited so far because I haven't been able to find anything else. But the homeschooling it's all available online, so it's the curriculum that they offer.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I want to be compliant with the government so they're not, on my neck. But these are the types of things that I want my children to understand and know.
Is that something you guys have ever thought about doing, Nancy?
You have a couple things going on. Like you've made some recordings. We've watched some.
Yeah,
we've made quite a few recordings, and we've done some Zoom meetings during the pandemic for different groups, and Louisiana and Texas and all this kind of thing. But we are we did a podcast with Glenn Beck for Thanksgiving. I think last November.
Really good.
And he still replays that. We did David Barton's Thanksgiving special, and we've been on the 700 Club at least 5 times. So we always at Thanksgiving. So we do, but we do we can probably do Zoom.
Yeah,
teaching.
we've done it a couple of times. We're pilgrims, keep that in mind. So we don't know a lot about this technology. You can help us to, work that out. We're happy to do it.
Well, because I was thinking, like, let's say taking a trip is not, feasible for you guys to be able to offer a class, like a paid class, for you to be able to give the secret sauce and go around the monument and talk about the different, I think that would be excellent. Would you guys be willing to do something like that?
Yes, definitely.
Would you be willing for me to come there and film it?
Say that again?
Would you be willing to, I'd be willing to go there and film it. I mean, we all have to take action, and I need to do more. And I think that this is something that's very, very important that has to be done. So
We'd love to have you come, and we do homeschooling groups all the time. As a matter of fact, on Friday, we're doing a church of 400 people up at the monument, and we do this all the time. But there's also another dynamic to it. We did a meeting for church in Tennessee, and instead of paying them to come out here, they paid for us to go there. And it cost them a lot less money for us to go there than for 40 or 50 people to come see us.
There you go.
So we are flexible on either side of that, but we love giving the message. That's our desire. Is to give
And
the
I would
would
pipe
be
in for
completely
Nancy
on
here
my
because I know
petty.
what she's thinking, and I'm thinking the same thing because we were told the same thing. As far as the filming of it, this is what Nancy told us when we showed up in 2013. She said, just air clips of it because you still want people to come, like even for tonight, to come for the whole thing. So you don't want to give the whole tour. You don't want to give the whole end of the story, the whole thing, but give it enough for people to get excited to want to come. Yeah.
But there is something there to be had.
Yes.
A filming of the whole thing, and then putting it up online for classes, homeschool classes that you
like a
buy, and things like that.
That's what I was.
It's funny. There's both sides of the coin on that. Do we do it and put it out there and then, lose what we have, lose what we own?
Right.
Or, and it's kind of funny. We gave Eric Metaxas a tour of the monument about 2 months ago.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And afterwards he said, that was unbelievable. And we have a DVD of it. So Nancy gave him the DVD and he took it with him and he played the whole thing on his Facebook page.
His wife said, you really should get this out there. And so she went and put it out there. So, to answer your question, we have a video that was produced. A young man here came and did our tour. He videotaped it of the monument. We still have a couple other things we're trying to work on getting them on recordings because we're getting older. It's real important to get that information out there.
Yes.
So we do have it, and to be able to do, if you wanted to do some kind of a Zoom class, we could do that. We can talk to you about that. Coming here is great. However, we can get the message out.
Right. And one way that you can still get people to want to go there is you don't show the pictures. You tell the stories.
Oh.
But then it's like, hey, and here, if you'd like to come and see what we're actually talking about, here's how to get.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you think about the exponential of people hearing this story right now, people are really hungry for this story. Yeah. And they want to know, where did we come from? How did this happen? Because it's slipping through our fingers. I'm in a homeschool group in Cincinnati, and I was shocked. I did not expect this out of a homeschool group, a large homeschool group in Cincinnati. A woman posted and she said, how do you all deal with Thanksgiving and the holidays now that we know the true history? And the comments were, I was shocked. So many homeschool moms were saying, yeah, it's so atrocious. We just try to skim over it. How do you, and they were asking, how do you teach the and I made a big post and I tagged Leo and Nancy in it. I tagged the Jenny Museum in it. I put the website in. I said, you guys have been brainwashed. I said, these people were made friends, so much so, Leo, didn't the Wampanoag move their whole village to be closer for protection-wise near to the Pilgrims?
The Wampanoags, when they became Christians, they moved their village close to the water.
That was Massasoit was the big chief of the Wampanoags. Hobbamock was the chief of the local Wampanoag tribe. That's right. That was located right next to our building on the river. On one side of the river was Hobbamock's village. On the other side of the river was the plantation. But what happened is that the Pilgrims, it's hard to explain this. They went from socialism to capitalism, changed the world, and never had a starving day after that. But they did have one bump in the road. They had a drought where all the crops wilted.
Right.
Yeah, and on a Wednesday morning in July, 90 degrees, not a cloud in the sky, William Bradford turned to his people and he said to them, we need to get on our knees and we need to ask God what we've done wrong. And they began to pray. Well, noontime, not a cloud. 2 o'clock, nothing. 4 o'clock, a little cloud right above the plantation. And by 6 o'clock, it began to rain. And I do not mean the kind of rain we're used to here in Plymouth, a nor'easter where everything gets knocked over. But a soft, gentle rain fell on Plymouth Plantation for 2 weeks. And the crops were saved. Somebody went up to the governor and said, hey, governor, what'd you talk to God about? What'd you pray about? He said, well, you know what? Maybe, just maybe, we thought all the success was us.
Yes.
We were no longer humble. And there was a visitor when that took place. That visitor's name, Hobbamock, the Indian. Hobbamock went up to the governor and says, you know what, governor? I like your God. I just watch him save your crops.
Wow.
And Hobbamock became a Christian.
Yes.
Yes. And that is when 3 years after the Pilgrims arrived, he built his village across the river so he could be closer to his Christian friends and his Christian God.
I love
That's
this
so good.
much.
All right, Aaron, do you have anything else to add?
No, well, like what I was saying is like a class, like
A
to be
class.
able to afford a class that we could submit to the education system and have. Do you see what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
not necessarily just a visit or something like that. I mean, like building the foundation of this nation.
Like a
From the
curriculum.
Like a curriculum.
Right. So having a constitution class,
Right.
because we never really learned anything about that. I mean, bringing God back into our schools and all of this, but trying to film something that we could submit to the education system that inevitably we could vote into the curriculum.
Well,
You know, it's something that'll last not just the next 100 years, but the next.
Yeah.
do you guys sell the stuff in your bookstore? Do you have a store online?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Okay,
We do have
because
a
I
lot
bought
of
a ton of books, and some of it was like a homeschool.
This one right here.
Well,
for
some of it was homeschool
starters.
curriculum, you had like kids curriculum books in there, and I actually loaned it out, never got it back. But there
Is
was
that one Divine Providence and
there was Divine Providence, and then there's the stories and the miracles, and also in addition, Pastor Paul Jaley. Do you guys still sell his CDs of his stories? Okay,
Yeah.
those stories
Okay.
sold by Paul Jaley. You go. So how do people get to your store?
The Jenny.org, right?
Yeah.
So the jenny.org is our website. As far as Paul's, I know the little cases that you're talking about, we don't sell those anymore.
Oh,
Okay.
I think they're CDs. I think I don't know if he's trying to get them onto a more current format or not, but you could contact me about those. And
I need those on the. Those are some of the. We played them all the way back home from
Yeah, 'cause
the
it was
most
the
amazing stories
holidays.
you've ever heard.
Yeah, some really good stories.
Give them Watts, boys. That's I keep remembering it.
So you can go to the Jenny.org and there's a shop there, right?
Yes.
And there's a lot of books that you can turn into like a curriculum. And some
Right.
I know I got homeschool curriculum. I lent it out and never got it back.
But I like Aaron's idea, and that would be something for Leo and Nancy to pray about, whether they could put it on their plate of literally creating a curriculum that that homeschool families could incorporate, even if it was just a video curriculum that they could just purchase, and with maybe even with the videos that you already have, and just like hone it in towards homeschooling. Because that's kind of what you're saying, right, Aaron?
Right. So it wouldn't be like something that's free that you're losing your hat over.
Yeah.
Right.
But this information needs to get out. I mean, this is real education.
It is.
Well,
and you're
and-
right. And we're coming up to our off season. We close for the season Saturday. So that might give us some time to try to put some of this curriculum ideas together.
That would be
Okay.
awesome.
Shoot it out to all the verse. We get it in the county by county with the Bards
Yes.
Evan family. Telling
Yes.
everybody.
I believe that is a really good idea, and that is something that we've been talking about doing, and we really need to start doing it because it needs to be out there, and
It
nobody's
does.
telling their real stories. So,
And Aaron is a filmmaker.
okay.
Yes.
He is fantastic.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Aaron, it sounds like we need to try to connect somehow.
And I can
Yeah,
get you. I can get you guys connected too, as well, outside of Cloud Hub. So, Aaron, I'm going to shut you down. Thank you for raising your hand. I appreciate
Absolutely.
all
Thank
of
you very
you.
much.
I kind
You know-
of thought I might be able to count on you too.
Just so you know, I wanted to be first, but I was trying to figure out how I could do my camera.
Okay.
Oh, great.
Very good.
I love that you got the Cloud Hub hat on and the Bards
and the
Evan
Bards.
flag-
Yeah, you're a big
flag.
promo. I love it. All right. Thanks, Aaron.
Okay, thank
you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, Lou. Can you hear us, Lou? We'll try again. Lou?
Hang on. It might
Wait,
take a
I think I
minute.
hear. Oh, did he get put in the?
Lou, are you there? Make him speaker again.
We got
He's-
Lou to work last time.
Yeah, Lou was speaking last time.
Lou, was your mic on?
I think there also might be a leg too when I put him in the different boxes.
Oh, okay.
A little bit of a lag. But okay, so while we're waiting on Lou, and we're going to just, Lou, you're in the speaker box, so anytime you can just start speaking and hopefully we'll be able to hear you. So I was telling Leo and Nancy, and I wonder if Thomas is still here. Yeah, Thomas is here. So you guys remember our last Cloud Hub event with Omega Kingdom Ministry, which was last week, and we told you about this event that they're going to be doing in Philadelphia. And we're going to be going, we're going to be speakers, and they're praying about how big the event's going to be and who we can get involved and so on and so forth. And before we did this live stream, I was telling Leo and Nancy about it. And I literally was like, and maybe you guys could possibly come. And Leo was like, pencil it in. Yes. So, I'm telling Thomas this live right now. So I want all of you guys that are listening to be praying about attending this event. Going back to the founding of our nation, it's one thing to hear about it. And yes, we will make things available for you to be able to listen online. Not everybody can go. But if you can go, if you are a person that has the ability, maybe you can, we've got enough in advance to be able to attend something like this. It is life-changing. When I went to the monument, the Forefathers Monument the first time, my life has never been the same. And I actually watched the whole monumental first. Hearing it again from Leo was
Every
a whole
single
different
time
thing.
it's
Every time you
new.
hear it, it's almost kind of like the word of God that's alive.
Well, and here's the thing: nobody took us on a tour to the graveyard, to
Burial Hill, yeah, we
Burial
did that
Hill.
ourselves.
We went there ourselves, and we had Mort's relation with us, and we kind of read some stuff. And as soon as we entered into this, you think death,
Right.
I felt life.
Yeah.
I have never been to a place. It is in America, to me, it is the most holy place I've ever been. I literally broke down in tears. I was reading, maybe to kind of give somebody a taste. Explain the tombstones on Burial Hill. They're not written like we do tombstones. they were like,
It was kind of an admonition, like.
there was admonitions, and then there were like, it was. They didn't believe in death the way even modern Christianity. These Christians, you passed on. It was sad, but it was like you lived on. Like I felt life there.
Absolutely. And and it is a very special place. And Governor William Bradford is buried up on Burial Hill. And his marker is about 7 feet tall, an obelisk. And I told you he could speak 5 languages. Well, the last language he learned was Hebrew. He taught himself Hebrew at night by translating a Hebrew in an English Bible. So he taught himself to speak and read Hebrew. And on the top of that statue is written in Hebrew, Jehovah is my help.
Jehovah is my help.
Yeah.
Jehovah is my help.
So that's a monument to who he was.
Yeah.
See, it's not just a burial spot, it's who he was,
Yes.
what he brought with him, and his story. And he's buried right next to his son. who was a captain, kind of took over for Miles Standish at some point. And then you have John Howland up there. You have Elder Faunce. Elder Faunce was the man who discovered Plymouth Rock. They were going to build a pier over Plymouth Rock, and Elder Faunce walked 3 miles to say goodbye to Plymouth Rock when he was 95 years old.
Wow.
And he got there, he had tears in his eyes, and the folks said to him, "Hey, what's the big deal? It's a rock." He said, "Oh no, that's not a rock. That's the rock."
I love it.
That's where the Pilgrim stepped when they got off the Mayflower. Well, Elder Faunce made it to 99 years old. And he was buried up on Burial Hill with the rest of his friends. We have a guy up there named General Warren, who was a general during the Revolution. And he was married to a young woman named Mercy Otis. And Mercy Otis is buried up there too. General Warren, a general during the Revolution, put together in a house in downtown Plymouth, which today is called the Guilty Bakery, he put together a protest against the Stamp Act with his best friend, Sam Adams.
Wow.
So he was very close to Sam Adams.
So much history there.
He's buried up on Burial Hill also.
And you can feel it.
Oh, you can. It just, and it's quiet. Everybody's dead. You know. Yeah, but it's just the stories up there are just transfixing. It's amazing.
So a trip to Plymouth isn't just about the Mayflower, which you can go and see a replica of the Mayflower called Mayflower 2. It's amazing. It's one of the most interactive places, and I can't explain it. It's interactive. You can touch it. You can feel it. Some of the buildings are like original almost.
The Howland House, right?
Well, the oldest house left in Plymouth is next door to our building, and that was called the Sparrow House. It was built in 1640.
With that tiny little stair.
Yeah. And our house, our building was built in 1749. So we're one of the newer ones in Plymouth. Yeah. And then you do have the Howland House, which is the only house left in Plymouth that there was an actual Pilgrim in.
Okay.
And John Howland, he didn't own the house, his son did. But John Howland visited that place, and I believe his wife, Elizabeth Tilley, died in that house.
Gotcha.
So there's a lot of history there, too.
Okay, so I got a couple of comments I'm going to read, and then if we can't get Lou, we'll have to get you for next time. Let's see. So one of our friends actually lives locally in the chat, but in her chat, the name is Juanita76. She says, the Wampanoag Way and the Pilgrim Life are scholastic videos that she has used in teaching, and they're really good. She says... Liz has put the link in the chat for you guys to be able to watch the parade, usthanksgiving.org.
Oh, cool.
So thank you for finding that, Liz. And then she also put the jenny.org in the chat. So thank you for that, Liz.
Thank you.
So Barry Brittbaza wants to know, he's our friend that lives in the UK. He says, Michelle, ask Leo and Nancy if the clothes that you're wearing was made in the same way that the Pilgrims would have made their clothing. And if so, what plants were used for the dyes? That red is rather vivid.
Well, they did wear colorful clothing. The rumor that they always wore black is not true. And they would make something red like this by dyeing it with cranberries. So they did.
Yes.
They were able to do that. You might notice that we have these flaps. This is exactly what a pilgrim's costume would look like, except there's one difference. The first year I did this 21 years ago, I wore wool because the pilgrims wore wool.
Right?
I lost 35 pounds.
From sweating.
And wool.
Good diet plan.
Yeah, and wool that you're sweated in, I was not the most pleasant person in the world to stand next to. But so now we wear it similar, but we don't use wool. We have these made by people who do it, but we leave the wool thing out. I still lose about 10 pounds a season.
Whoa!
So they were not boring, drab people. So we like to wear bright colors. They like to wear bright colors.
Yeah. There's so much to get there. So much. We have all kinds of pilgrim memorabilia, and even on the fun side of it, you've got little shops. Our favorite is there's this candy shop, and they have the most amazing dark chocolate known to mankind.
Fidelis.
Oh my gosh! We bring back the little raspberry.
Cranberry
Cranberry dark chocolate crunch stuff. Oh, it's
You're
so
making me
good.
homesick.
I know. We have a friend of ours who lives in Manhattan who got to meet Leo and Nancy on a tour.
Ashley.
And she went up there, 3-hour drive, just to send us some.
And she literally got it and mailed it back.
Yeah, so it's a fun place to go. It's amazing. You can go and visit the replication of the village. It's a little bit more liberal,
they have the Plymouth plantation where you can go and walk through, and so there's so much to do in Plymouth. Like, this is a legit trip that you guys need to make. I think that this is your next family trip. It's a pilgrimage. You will literally leave changed, but you can also put on your calendar to come to Philadelphia in May the 5th through the 7th with Omega Kingdom Ministry, and possibly I'm going to talk to Scott about getting involved.
Leo, I know that the world is kind of crazy, and when you take us back to this foundation, I have hope again. When I look at, like, Peter at the waves going all around, we see a lot of waves. Can you leave people with, like, a message of hope that it's not too late, that our country is redeemable?
Well, no, it's not too late. And even where our country is today, which is not a good place, we know who wins in the end. So we've always got that. And Nancy and I do take a lot of heat at the monument and from people who don't want to hear the story.
Right.
And we've had people threaten us and all kinds of odd things coming.
Wow.
So we've got to be very careful with that, but we cannot stop telling the true story.
Yeah.
And we do, and you do see glimmers of hope. We get down just like everybody else. Mm-hmm. But the good news is, on occasion, folks like you come back to us and help build us back up again, because we need to know people are out there wanting to hear and listening to the story.
Yeah.
We need to know that. We don't feel we get enough people to come and see us, but we can't forget that God works in remnants.
Yes.
You're a remnant.
Yeah.
And what we're doing is affecting people all over the world.
Yes.
And it's so important. And the story needs to be gotten out. That's why it's so important to talk with you guys. That's why it really is important for us to go to Philadelphia and piece the whole story together.
Yeah.
Right from the Pilgrims right up through to today.
I have goosebumps.
I do. We're going to fix this country, and this is how we do it. And
because the foundation has already been laid, guys. We don't have to have wars over this.
Well, who came up with the title Matrix of Liberty? The Matrix of Liberty. That's what.
It was just once the thing was built, the Matrix of Liberty just was a natural thing for it to be called. Where 5 statues representing what the Pilgrims did, the 5 things that were important to the Pilgrims.
Which is the Matrix.
And as Kurt says in his movie Monumental, this is the way back.
The secret sauce.
The secret sauce.
The recipe.
There's no doubt about it. And all the 5 statues: faith, morality, law, education, liberty, all blend together to tell the Pilgrim story, which is the founding of our country. And it is very important for us to protect that.
What's
so
this?
that you can see that.
What's she holding right here?
In her hand,
you can't see it. In her hand is.
In the hand.
I have hearing aids and I can't see.
It's
the Bible.
The
it's
Geneva
the Bible, right?
The Geneva Bible.
The Geneva Bible. And the pages are opened.
And the reason, it's the Geneva Bible because that's what the Pilgrims used. And it was relatively inexpensive. It was easy to read because it was the chapter and verse for the first time. 1/3 of the Geneva Bible was footnotes. So it's virtually the first study Bible.
Yes.
But then we have to talk about the King James Bible, which was a result of the Geneva Bible. See,
Yeah.
King James didn't like the Geneva Bible. Why didn't he like it? The footnotes.
Yeah.
The footnotes would have told you King James was not God.
That
That didn't sit well with the king. Write me a new Bible, put my name on it, make me God, and get rid of the footnotes. Unfortunately, he hired the same folks that wrote the Geneva Bible, pretty much came out the same way. No footnotes, but he was still not God. So if you got a King James, hang on to a pretty good book, just has the wrong guy's name on it. And it does appear the pages are open a little bit, and people say, what's going on there? Is that breeze blowing through that Bible? Well, if you ask the Pilgrims, that's no breeze. That's a spirit.
Wow.
The Holy Spirit. You cannot have the change on the inside unless you're filled with the Holy Spirit and it reflects who you are on the outside. That Bible represents the Holy Spirit.
Wow. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Barry says in England, he says the Mayflower thing is rather big in Essex, especially in Harwich, England, because a lot of people in Harwich have ties to the Mayflower, and it's and it's people that went over. So it's very interesting, you know, that even the people in England feel a great tie to these pilgrims.
Mm-hmm.
They do. And for our 400th anniversary, that never happened. We were simulcasting events with Plymouth, England, and that was all supposed to happen together because we're very, very closely related with this story. Yeah. I mean, we're their kindred. You know, we were them. Yeah. And just like the Revolutionary War, we didn't want to leave England.
Right.
We were English, but we were forced to leave England. Right. Just like we were forced to write the Declaration of Independence.
Right.
We never wanted to do that.
Right.
We wanted to be English, but that kinship is still very strong.
Yes.
And we get a lot of people coming here from England to hear the story.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's awesome. So our friend Ashley is actually in the chat. And I don't know if you, Leo and Nancy, remember, but when we came with Justin and Jimmy, our friend Ashley met up with us. She was the short little, not quite midget, but petite thing living, and I think she remembered your name because her own mother is the same as Nancy. I literally texted her. She's one of our best friends. Before, I didn't know she was going to show up because it's a big change to go to a new platform. I said we're going to be interviewing Leo and Nancy, so I just saw that she's there. So Patriot Valerie, our mom, had said that Ashley was here. So Ashley, I want to do a shout out to you because honestly, that moment, that trip, that second trip that we made for me was also life changing. So I have this connection, and we make these connections when, you know, whoever you go to an event like that with, it's like a bond.
I think I can take it even further. The movie Monumental and our trip to Plymouth set us on a different trajectory.
Absolutely.
So you can say that your tour poured into us, and you are part of what we do now.
Yeah.
Like it is like that was kind of some of our was like our first interviewing recording of anything that we did was Plymouth.
Yeah.
That was the very first thing before we had Resistance Chicks, before anything. And how many other people have been touched? So when you put your head on the pillow tonight, you're not going to know how many of those spidery things are happening all over, spider webs in this person's touch, and this person's touch, this person's touch. You won't know what a great of impact that you
this
have
side
made
of heaven
until you get to heaven. And people come up to you and say, Leo and Nancy, you were the little kid who put the thumb in the dam while everybody else was busy building a fresh one around it.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like that's what you're doing.
Yeah, well, that's awfully nice of you to say. Thank you very much. But now here's the good news. You guys are the stepping stones.
I love it.
Yeah.
We're going to continue this history to all these people.
Yeah.
We are now the stepping stones that William Bradford spoke about in his book.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't have
I'm sorry.
No, we wouldn't have gone to Plymouth if it wasn't for you telling the story.
Yeah.
And every single show, it seems like something goes back to the Pilgrims.
On our show.
You know, people laugh. People do make fun of us. Oh, you're the Pilgrim. You're the Pilgrim girl.
I literally made our channel, and I shouldn't have done it. I should have saved it for you guys. But in the beginning, when Cloud Hub was doing channels for us, which they've kind of moved away from that, but they would give you a channel number, and everybody was going in order, and I think I should have been like channel 235, and I said, "Can I get 1620?" They said, "Yeah, you can get 1620." So I was, and then after I took it, I thought I should have saved that for somebody more important.
You're very important.
You are very important, and we do thank you for what you do.
Yeah.
All right, thank you guys. So they can get Leah.
They can order this.
They can order this from the Jenny.org.
You can, but they're out of stock.
So, but they can get in line, right?
They can get in line, yes. I don't have an answer as to when. I'm really praying that they are out in time for Christmas, but I know it's, I just would tell people not to hope for that.
Sure.
Because of all those chain of supplies or whatever they call it.
They're probably floating in a box boat off of LA
California.
Coast. Yeah. And you can't get them in.
But
that would be, yes, the Pilgrims are stuck in the ocean again.
What, Nancy, what were you going to say?
I just want to say that our calling from God came in 2013 when He said he had given us the house we're in now, and we stood in one of the rooms that was nothing at the time, but a freshly painted room, and we said, "Okay, God, you gave us the house," and there's a whole story to that someday we'll tell you. But we said, "What do you want us to do with it?" And He said, and He doesn't talk to me clearly like that every day. I wish He did. But He said clearly, you are to educate and re-educate my people on the history of their country.
Wow.
And so ever since, when we opened the doors right after that, that's what we've been doing.
Wow.
And when you were just saying about touching different people, he touched us, we touched you, and you're touching, I don't even know how many thousands of people that you talk to every day.
Yeah.
So we're all little stepping stones and lights to the world. So
as one small candle,
that's right.
I always get the quote wrong. Has been kindled, so may it.
Okay, I'm going to read it. Thus, out of small beginnings, greater things have been produced by His hand that made all things of nothing and gives being to all things that are. And as one small candle may light 1,000, so the light here kindled hath shone unto many, yea, in some sort to our whole nation. Let the glorious name of Jehovah have all the praise. Governor William Bradford. That's on the monument.
Yes.
And those small candles are the 51 remaining pilgrims.
Out of
Well,
102?
102, exactly half. So if people come to me and say, I'm only one person, what can I do? I tell them, your country was founded by 51 people. You can do something.
That's so awesome.
Oh man, my hair is standing on end, I have to tell you. And I feel that way every time I listen to Leo speak. So
well, Aaron had said that he gave his life to Jesus at Bard's Fest.
Aaron, who was just talking to us a minute ago, he said, fun fact, these girls, and I didn't know this, I was standing 30 feet away from these girls at Bard's Fest when I gave my life to Christ.
Just a few months ago.
And that was at the end of
and now
August.
you're educating him on the foundations, and then he's going to be educating
his kids,
and he's going to be, spreading it county by county. And so it's just I want you to see, and my prayer is that God can give you a small glimpse this side of heaven to how many people you've touched. I don't know if you go and read the TripAdvisor comments, but multiply those times the thousands of people who don't write a review on TripAdvisor.
Right.
I mean, you're literally helping to change the trajectory of the world. You've inspired Glenn Beck. You've inspired Marshall Foster. You've inspired just obviously Kirk Cameron. TBN's had you on. I mean, like, seriously, you obeyed the call. You obeyed the call, and you're making that difference, and you're helping us all get back to this.
And it's hard to receive when someone says that, but I think Leah's saying it even more for you guys that are listening to know just how much of an impact you can have by seeing how much of an impact that Leo and Nancy have had just by answering a call.
Yeah.
Just by answering a call.
That's exactly right. So we'll go back to, do I feel we have hope in where our country's going? We do, because of people like you and people who are going to be spreading this word. And that young man who's going to homeschool his children.
Yes.
We have great hope with that going on.
And you guys have it, just one last bit thing. You guys devoted the whole basement of your museum to getting back to the family being the core unit of what's really going to change the world.
Yes. And now we have a part of that has turned into the covenant exhibit. So because
we made a room that looks like the captain's quarters of the Mayflower, where they signed the Mayflower Compact. So we talk about covenant in that room.
All right, you guys are going to want to miss it. You're going to go to thejenny.org. You're going to book your trip to Plymouth while we still can travel. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
While we're still allowed to roam freely about the cabin. Anything else you want to add?
Waiting.
No, are you guys anywhere else online? Or the best place is thejenny.org?
And Facebook?
Yeah. Leo I kind of banned Facebook myself, but I do go through Leo, and so yes,
so Leo
we have
Martin on Facebook.
Yeah, and the Jenny Interpretive Center
Center.
That's on Facebook too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I post a
Yes.
lot of messages on those things. So
You do
historical
quotes and
history.
very encouraging.
And I'm going to make sure, guys, that the links, if you are still on Facebook, which we are, and a lot of people are, I will make sure that you have that direct access to Leo there, and the Matrix of Liberty on Instagram. Thank you guys for coming on. Leo, would you end us in prayer?
I sure will. God, we praise you for Plymouth. We praise you for the Pilgrims and for their incredible commitment, their covenant with you. And we pray that that covenant remains with you and that the country, the people of our country, follow your covenant and follow you. And that this, what we're doing now, what is going on, will start a revival that'll bring our country back to God where we need to be.
Amen.
And we ask this on this season of Thanksgiving. We
Yes.
thank the Pilgrims for their thoughtfulness, for their thankfulness. And again, they thank God in everything. And so we need to get back then there too. I thank God for people like you, the people who are listening to these young ladies that are talking to us, and for the great opportunity we all have to pick God's name up, to make God God, and to make Jesus King.
Oh, that's so
We
good.
thank you and we praise you in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen. Okay,
Amen.
I know we said just one last thing, but speaking of Thanksgiving, they went through. I don't want to leave people with the sad part of the story. We celebrate Thanksgiving because what was it? Just the next year?
Isn't it this the 400th anniversary of the first Thanksgiving?
Yes.
Yes.
This is a 400. Yeah.
We celebrated that in October. That's what we did when Kirk Cameron did his
Okay.
Campfire Revival. We had a whole week of celebrations for the 400th anniversary of the first Thanksgiving and the signing of the peace treaty with the Indians.
And they signed a peace treaty. Did they sign it at that moment or before?
Before.
Before. And then they had food, basically, right?
Well, they did.
That's
and-
all I'm thinking about.
Well, the thing is, Jamestown talks to us all the time and says, look, we had the first Thanksgiving, not you. But here's the difference. We had the first Thanksgiving where we celebrated with the Indians as friends. And that's a big difference. And it was 3 days long. We played games. 3 days. Food, games, all kinds of things went on. So that also brings me to another point. When I come home for Thanksgiving dinner now and I want to watch football, I tell everybody when they say you shouldn't, it's Thanksgiving, I say, but the Pilgrims play games. Why can't we?
I love it. Okay.
I love that. I
All
love
right,
it.
happy ending. My mom says food.
No, I
Oh,
said
you
that
food.
actually.
Okay,
I said food. So, all right, you guys. I hope you've been encouraged. I hope that this sets you up and your spirit up for Thanksgiving. Now, are you?
Oh wait, Britt Baza says, "Now, you guys haven't been to Plymouth because Leo and Nancy now should need to come to England."
Yeah,
And
the
and
England.
We would love to do that.
Now, you guys are tied also with the Plymouth Rock Foundation. Is that right?
Yes. Well,
Because-
we know we work together in different events. Yes.
Well, because they had sent out an email because they've got that booklet for Thanksgiving, and I'm going to put that link also in today's article on resistancechicks.com, because that's really kind of like a sit down, read it to your family kind of thing around Thanksgiving for all of this. I believe that Thanksgiving is a year-long thing, just like Christmas.
Yes.
Now we hit the height of it right now, but seriously, the Pilgrims, our foundation, the forefathers, take this with you all year long and have the apex be this Thursday when you're celebrating with your family. Make it about the Pilgrims. Do some research, and you can go and follow Leo and Nancy on these other platforms and see what they're posting too. So thank you guys for taking the time.
And you can donate.
You can donate.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Oh, they can.
We are a 501c3, so yes, we can.
And that's
You can just donate straight
And that's
to
right
the
there
Jenny
on the
Museum.
website, the Jenny, JENNEY
Yes,
.org.
Yes, ma'am.
So you want to go
Keep
there
them
and
going
donate.
because last year was tough, you guys. Coronavirus has hit them hard. So
Yes.
Thank you.
their bodies are still going, but you guys, if you guys have some extra funds and you want to do something, you're like, hey, I'd like to get a good tax write-off this year.
Well,
Jenny
Leo
Museum.
and Nancy are on the front lines of this fight that
They
we're
are.
fighting. Like,
Yes.
seriously, every day they get up and they face the vitriol from the left. They face the hatred. They face the hardship of having to do this through, you know, like a 501c3, that sort of thing. So they do need your support. They need your prayers. And if you are able to donate as well, and then just take people, go take the tour. It's that simple. Buy their stuff online, buy the replica when it comes off of the coast of California and the ships. Like, do all of the things and catch the fire. All right, you guys, thanks for being here. This meeting will be available if you didn't catch the whole thing on all of our other platforms, because I think I was able to successfully record it. So we'll put it up pretty much everywhere where you guys are used to us. Also, we're going to be premiering in a half hour at 9:30. If you guys are here watching us live, an interview that we did with a JFK historian, because today is the 58th anniversary of the JFK assassination. So you can join us on our live platforms. Go to resistancechicks.com, and all of the links are there. So Leah and I will be here to start you off with that, and then we'll play the interview. All right. Thank you, Leo and Nancy. We're going to be praying for you, and hopefully we will see you in May.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and happy Thanksgiving.
I do have to say one more thing that I know you're going to really love.
Okay.
If you look at our bookstore, there is a new book out called The Guidebook to the Forefathers Monument. I believe that's the title. A woman named Michelle Gallagher and her husband Dan.
Yeah.
Proclamation is the name of their book company. But she's a woman, Plymouth resident, and she just did this book. It's like a coffee table book.
Yes.
So take a look at it if you haven't seen it, because you'll really love it. It's just
Sounds like I got a Christmas present to get.
that's right. That's right.
Speaking of which, have a Merry Christmas.
Yes.
You too.
Well,
All right.
blessed-
Happy Thanksgiving and Merry
blessed one.
Christmas. Thank you guys
Thank
for
you,
everything
everybody.
that you're doing.
Thank you for having us.